All right, here we are. Talk about strategy number 10. Remember,
Amazing.
33 strategies of war. And strategy 10 is to create a threatening presence. Deterrence strategy.
Yeah. Super interesting.
Do you consider yourself a threatening presence?
I never have considered myself a threatening presence, really. You know? But I do remember one time when I was already seasoned and I was buying an agency, and the word got out because he put it out for the public to see, you know, even though we had been talking privately about it. And there were a couple of guys that came to bid, and they realized that I was in the bidding, and because I was in the bidding, they told the owner, no, he, we're not in that league or whatever, and so we're gonna stay out. We're not gonna be able to compete with Pablo. And that was very interesting to me because I never considered myself, a threatening force, or that I was in any way that, because I'm not that big. I'm not, it's not I would call myself a mid-size agency. There are plenty of agencies much bigger, much, much bigger.
So
But
how did
in
you
this
hear
partic-
about this?
So the word was out that I was able to, because I have bought already like three agencies. And so when you do that, the word gets out, It doesn't matter where you are. If you're buying an electrical company and you buy one or two, the word gets out with electrical contractors. Hey, if you want to sell, this is the guy to go to. If you want this or that. I think I promoted myself well, a lot better than maybe the bigger companies. And so my name was on the streets as someone that could pull the trigger, right? Because there's a lot of talk.
Well, that's
And-
what this whole chapter is about. That
Yeah.
there's a lot of talk, but action will always beat talk.
Right. But the interesting part, life is a learning experience. It's a pathway you create yourself, right? Especially in sales and in business, in real estate, where we are. And I never thought of myself in any way or form as, when these two people pulled, and I found out from the owner. The owner said,
Oh,
look,
okay.
look what happened. Oh, is that what you're asking me?
Yeah, how'd you get wind? How did you
okay.
hear?
I thought you were asking me, how did I get wind of the sale of the agency?
No.
No. Okay, the owner told me.
Okay.
Look what happened, Pablo. These two guys dropped out when they found out that you were in the running for the bidding. And interestingly enough, I wasn't able to get that agency.
Wow.
That's one of the agencies that got away. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's-
But perception, the strategy is that perception is more important than the reality,
That's what Robert Greene says.
which it's something that a lot of times in the business setting, I think applies, especially. If people perceive you to be a closer, somebody who is successful, whether you are or aren't, they believe that, and many times that creates the reality. You get the shot. Now somebody can also see through somebody who's faking.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say someone who's seasoned, and they can tell, hey, he's faking it. But a lot of times perception, I think, is reality. And yeah, Greene makes a case in this one many times where a smaller army, a less powerful person is more successful, or at least able to hold off, let's say, being defeated because they're perceived as stronger than they actually are.
Yeah, I'm learning so much on this path we're on. Like Stonewall Jackson, with 3,600 men, he actually diverted a force of 60,000 men.
Wow.
he actually changed the course of the Civil War, you know, because Lincoln and the other generals didn't know what he was doing. He was very unpredictable.
Which that's one of the 48 laws of power, is to be unpredictable.
Right.
I think it's to create an air of
Uncertainty.
uncertainty, which, you know, in we like poker a lot. In poker, the guy that's unpredictable, the guy that you don't know if he's bluffing because you've called him and he had the hand and he won, and then another time he's betting crazy again, but do I want to challenge him because I lost already once against him? But he could be bluffing. That person is very hard to play against in a poker table, right?
For sure.
You just don't know what you're coming up against, and that also takes in negotiations. The person that's unpredictable, the guy that's crazy or perceived as crazy, you don't want to fight with that guy.
No, because, you know, he gives several experiences in history. And what's interesting to me is that he said, look, you want to let them know that if they are going to engage in a fight with you, you're going to take them down too. Even if you lose, you're going to take your enemy with you, which I thought that was interesting. You know, he says, you know, they're going to get a bloody nose, you know. It's really interesting. It's actually an art, you know.
Yeah, and then at that point you figure out, is it worth fighting this person? Or am I better off just, I'm going to leave that alone? Because even though I'm stronger than this person, it's going to, like you said, leave me with a bloody nose. He's going to take me down too.
Right. So if they perceive you, if the enemy perceives you as being weak, he will attack. Okay? But if the enemy perceives you as not being sure, but you're a hard-headed type of guy, or you're stubborn or whatever, he's going to think twice about engaging with you, because there are so many other people weaker that it will be an easy, because they're looking for an easy fight, potentially, right, in business. And I like the metaphor that he said, you know, be like a wasp, okay, on somebody's forearm or skin. Be like a wasp. Nobody wants to mess around with a wasp, right? Be like a porcupine. They're little, but they're full of spines. Even a tiger doesn't want to mess with them, you know? You see the young tigers, you know, messing with a porcupine, and then later on, 30 minutes later, they got all these spines that they have to, and they're in pain, okay? Those things hurt. They learned their lesson not to mess around with that little guy. So he says, be like that. And I find that to be extremely interesting.
So for somebody who is known as being a nice person, a gentle soul, how do you think that they should go about in creating a presence, a threatening presence? Because, well, I personally remember, you know, growing up hearing you would say, and the nice guys finish last, and that you know, you have to be more aggressive, because I was, let's say, not as aggressive. So what would you do in that situation? What would you recommend for people who are maybe too nice?
If you're too nice, it's a problem. I mean, you know, I'm going to get a lot of backlash on this, but, you know, when you're in business, there are times when you need to step up to the plate and be strong and confront an issue. He talks about, and I circled this because I found this to be very interesting, because I was very, very naive and nice in the beginning, and I got stepped on and trampled in the beginning. So you develop a little bit of hard skin, and then you start seeing the big picture. And so he said, the path of least resistance when dealing with conflicts can become a very bad habit. So, you know, I've always been a person that don't necessarily want to confront people and have conflicts with people. It's in my nature. So in order to be aggressive. I had to learn it and force myself. And I think you can learn any skill. And I remember on the 48 Laws of Power, I was buying an agency one time. I will never forget it. And I always did a T-chart, okay? Oh, what was good about it, what was bad about it. And if on the T-chart there were more goods than bad, that would help me make my decision to move forward, okay? And I remember looking at an agency one time, and I needed it because I was new in the area, and I really needed that. And I knew that if I didn't get it, my competitors would do it, and it wouldn't allow me to grow. And so there's one of the laws that says once you make a decision, run through it like a freight train. Go forward. Once you make the decision to do it, go forward like a freight train. Don't let the momentum, wave by the side. And so I remember thinking, this may not be all that good, but I needed it. And we made the offer. He accepted the offer, and I went through. And sure enough, I got hurt with it initially. Over the years, it turned out to be a good thing. But initially, it hurt me. There were a few things that I didn't measure correctly. I thought it was going to be, the disadvantage was going to be this big, and it ended up being this big. And another disadvantage somewhere out this big, and it ended up being bigger. And you need to adjust on the road.
Yeah, because the decision's made.
Yeah, well, it's too late.
It's done. Yeah.
It's too late.
Yeah.
You have to deal with it.
But you may approach another opportunity like that differently next time.
For sure.
Yeah.
It won't happen again. This wasn't a full purchase. This was a partial purchase. So I got hurt.
Yeah. I find this strategy to be difficult because if it's not in your nature to be, let's say, threatening. Some people are threatening. I don't know if it's their life experiences. They've been hardened.
I don't know if you remember, we were going to LA the other day, and we passed by this place where there are a lot of truckers.
Yeah.
And we both looked at one guy, and you beat me to the punch. You said, man, that guy looks
tough.
And these truckers are tough looking guys. At their core, they may be the most gentle, but they look tough.
Yeah. So for the person that doesn't have that in their nature,
you need to work at it.
How do you create a threatening presence? I mean, it's difficult. I think, Robert Greene gives some cool examples about how you can be the weaker one. Like he was explaining Robert the Bruce.
Yeah.
And that was a really interesting how the King of England wanted to take over these areas. And Robert the Bruce was like a thorn that he couldn't get out until eventually, not the king's son, but the original King
Grandson.
Edward the first.
Third.
Yeah, the third ends up giving Robert the Bruce or
kingship,
giving him the kingship. Yeah, recognizing him as the king of Scotland.
So the two strong. I find that as generations continue to evolve, we're becoming weaker men. I'll get a lot of slack on that maybe, but because I remember my father being a strong, not only physically, he wasn't big in stature, but he was strong, and all these people had a lot of character. I think life was tougher back then, remember that in the old days, it took you a whole day to cook or bake a loaf of bread. Okay? You had to go out in the fields, get the wheat, separate the wheat from the chaff, whatever it is that's involved with it. And it took a whole day to bake a loaf of bread. So when you sat down in the evening, and that wasn't the only thing you were doing. You were milking the cows, you were doing this, you were doing that. So before the industrial age came by, now we can go to the supermarket and buy whatever you want. But if you had to make it, now you really need to be resourceful. You really need to think. You really need to plan your day. You're going to be. So in the old days, it was tougher. That's why Jordan Peterson says, this is the best time to be alive. Because in the old days, everything was super, super hard.
Yeah.
So we were tougher, and we had more character, more charisma, more.
We were more threatening. We were, yeah.
You had to fight for a living.
You had to fight for a living.
Yeah.
Yeah. People were dying at a much earlier age.
Oh yeah.
People
in
would,
their 30s.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't have to go back that far, and it was very common that there were a lot of deaths.
Just go back 120 years.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, I gave you the example, like, you have a very active role in your grandchildren's life, but you didn't have grandparents.
No.
Well, you had them, but they passed before you were born or soon after you were born.
Soon thereafter. Yeah.
Soon thereafter. So, what a difference. I mean, that's just, we're talking within 3 generations. You were raised without grandparents being an active part of your life because people passed away much sooner. And now you're very active in the life of your grandkids.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just in your family. I know some people have had great grandparents and they've had that in their families, but in our family it's not the case.
I've met many business owners that are, now that you say that, I'm putting this stuff together, that as I look back, they were tough competitors, right? And they were raised by their grandmother.
Oh,
I
interesting.
can think of 2 specifically that we became friends, and they said, yeah, my grandmother raised me for X or Y reason, right? Very interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that you need to work at it, and you toughen up. Life toughens you up.
Life will toughen
You
you.
have no choice.
Yeah.
In the beginning, I got, you trusted people, and people turned around and said one thing and did another. And then you start saying, oh, well, wait a minute.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the talk. It's look at the actions of people. In fact, I told that to one of my grandkids the other day because we were having a conversation and it got a little deep. And I said, no, people can talk all they want. Watch what they do. And I think it hit him. I think he went, huh? I go, yeah. Watch what people do.
Yeah. Well, talking about grandkids, you have, for example, one grandkid that's more docile he's not really for confrontation, and the other one is, he'll confront. It's in his nature to confront.
Yeah.
So the it's interesting. The one that it's in his nature to confront, you would teach him, let's say, to be a little less confrontational in certain situations, and then the one who is in their nature to be more gentle, be more confrontational in certain situations.
Yeah. I remember them growing up, and the little one hitting the old one.
Mm-hmm.
And the parents, I'm going to get in trouble for this one. So the mom and dad told them, when your little brother hits you, don't hit him back. And that's the right thing to do. However, when they were with me, right, when I was taking care of them, I saw the little guy trying to take advantage of the big guy. And so
he had immunity.
So I told the big guy, you can hit him back. When you're with me, you do what your mom and dad tells you. That's top of the line. That's okay. But if he hits you while you're in my house, hit him back. And they were both shocked. But I told them, yeah, you're hitting him. Why should you hit him? Because mom and dad told you can't hit your little brother. Well, here, you're going to know that if you hit him, he's going to whack you back. And there were a couple times when they went at it. And, no harm done.
Yeah.
Nobody got severely hurt or anything. But they knew. He knew. And so, there's something to be said. No doubt about it. You get involved in business, in any aspect of it, no matter what it is. whether you're selling marbles or watches or what water. I don't care what you're doing. You're going to get beat up a little bit, and you're gonna end up, becoming more
Developing.
aggressive.
Yeah.
And actually, the person that's more aggressive, nice guys finish last.
And then at that point, it's figuring out you don't need brute force every time.
No,
There's figuring out how to be aggressive in different ways. Greene
Right.
was talking about. He was talking about the person that through another person lets a third person know that they are a threat.
correct.
Remember? And so, who was he using as an example?
He was
there?
using the King of France.
The King of France.
Yeah, the Spider.
A Spider King.
The
Correct.
Spider King. His name was King Louis XI. Very
I mean,
smart.
That's 48 Laws of Power. That's 33 Strategies of War. This book, the deeper we go into the strategies, it's bringing a lot of those 48 Laws of Power back, because that's extremely calculated.
It's amazing. So King Louis XI put up a show in his court, and then the representative from Milan stepped out, and he knew he was there. Later on, he went out to talk to him and said, "Oh, by the way, did you hear this?" And the guy said, "Oh, I was there." So he knew that by saying a couple of bad things about the king of Milan, that it was going to get to him. And that kept him in order for the next few years, because he knew, hey, you step out of line, I'm going to go ahead and declare war on you.
Right.
And France was stronger. But the king of Milan was a treacherous little guy, treacherous little devil.
And Greene
Very
is
interesting.
arguing that that's more effective than overtly threatening, let's say, the King of Milan,
Right.
to go through another person, because he's not supposed to get this information.
Correct.
That's the way it was.
But he got it.
That's the way it was made. Look.
But it's very interesting that at the end of that example,
Mm-hmm.
he shares with everybody that King Louis XI did it all on purpose.
Right.
But not even his own court knew. He took it
Right.
upon himself to do that.
The Spider King.
That is one sneaky. And it also brings out we're not at this level because we're not fighting for our lives, but apparently Mao Zedong said, hey, it's better to cut off one finger of a man than to injure all 10.
Wow.
Just cut a finger off. That will make more of an impact than you just injure all 10 fingers. Just cut one off.
So,
Jesus.
so
Very interesting stuff, man.
there's a very famous saying. Earlier you said that you were explaining to one of your grandkids about talking versus, I guess, somebody who takes action.
Yeah.
Yes, it's all talk. The saying in Spanish is "Pedro que ladra no muerde." Is that how it is?
That is correct.
So can you explain what that saying means? Like, how does that apply to this?
Well, in this particular instant, we were talking about somebody saying that they're going to do something, or
Pedro que
Talk.
ladra no muerde means
the dog that barks does not bite.
does not bite.
Yeah. You make a lot of noise, but when it comes down to it, you don't pull the trigger.
And people see that in you.
For sure. For sure. You're just a lot of talk and no action. Absolutely.
Like a chihuahua.
Yeah. I've seen it on Instagram. It's funny, where this little dog is barking a lot at this big, huge dog, and the big one doesn't even pay attention. And then they put them real close together, and the little one goes, like, oh my God, this guy can eat me with one bite. And then they separate him again, and he gets ferocious again because there's distance between. So it's funny. But, you mentioned it, where it says power is not only what you have, but what the enemy thinks that you have, is the way you're being perceived. And Stonewall Jackson, with 3,600 men, 3,600 men, and he diverted a force of 60,000. Not only did he divert them, but because of the unpredictability of his actions, he had Lincoln and the other two generals going crazy, and they separated the army, which made them weaker, and it allowed, the South to get stronger in certain areas. So, it's, like you said, when we're playing poker, the man or the woman that has the best hand is not necessarily the one that wins all the time. It's how you play the hand that you've been dealt that actually makes a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. But to the person that is not...
But you gotta have guts.
Sure.
If you don't have the best hand to be betting in a way that you do, you really have to have guts. It's not in everybody.
Well, it depends how much money means to you.
Yes, but it's not only, let's say, money. Like, let's say in a business situation, you don't have the best. Let's say you're making an offer on a property. You don't have the best offer, but you're making it perceived as if you do, or you're trying to use other things to your advantage.
Yeah.
Well,
the highest price offer in real estate has a good position, but it's not always the ones that win. Because if I give better terms, right? Let's say I'm trying to get a property and the seller has a hot point, and I give a better term to the seller.
mm-hmm.
Let's say that I figured out by speaking to the agent or whatever that maybe carrying some paper, he wants some income for the next 5 years. Then carrying a note, if I offer that in my offer, it may be a turning point. I may be a little bit lower in price, whatever, 20,000, something like that, right? He may go with me because over the term of the span of 5 years, he's going to net more anyway. So, it all depends. You need to listen to, it's like the other law that says you need to be in the present. There's nothing like being in the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I changed my mind on quite a few things based on what I'm seeing in the moment. And so you need to be in the moment. It's so important. And you need to listen. You need to listen what the other person is saying. But, I really liked the one about the sword. That you read that one too?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I love it. I mean, he says, look, a sword that is always sheathed, inside the sheath, it becomes rusty and the blade will grow dull, just like its owner. If the sword is out all the time, people won't get close to you. You will have no allies, and that's equally bad. So if you keep the blade sheath too long, it's bad. If you keep it out all the time, it's bad. So what does that tell you? It's an art. You have to learn when to fight, when to be confrontational, when to pull back and put it back and relax, Yeah. It's really interesting. And Greene is amazing.
Yeah, the reputation that you have. The boy that cried wolf, for example, comes to mind. If every time something happens you cry wolf as it being an emergency, then when a real emergency happens, when a real wolf shows up, no one's gonna pay that much attention to you. You used all your chips already. you made all your calls. So yeah, it's the reputation that you have. You want a reputation of somebody who, I have some buddies that are very nice people, but I know that they're nice until you cross them.
Okay.
If you cross this person, I know that they're dangerous. And so I have a few friends that I can think of that come to mind that are this way. And it's good to have people like that around, I think, also. But you don't want to cross them, never cross this person, because they have that other side to them also. And I think that that's what create a threatening presence is. I think that they really are dangerous people, if they need to be.
Correct. They have it under control.
And that is, I think, a good reputation.
I think so too.
Somebody that's nice until you cross them. Don't cross them. But the only way that people will perceive you that way is if you've been maybe tested before, and you made it known to everybody, hey, this is the kind of person I am.
Right.
I'm a friendly guy, but I'm not gonna get walked over.
Right. You're not a pushover.
You're not a pushover.
Yeah. Well, I heard it said many times, he didn't get to that position by being a pushover.
Mm-hmm.
At some point in time, when you're climbing, just the sheer fact that you're climbing makes you strong. But on top of it, you got to fight. I know we're being, it's a lot of comparisons, but you got to fight to get up there, because you're going to have a lot of competition from different people that want what you want to be able to climb. You see?
Mm-hmm.
So, you're going to have to be at some point in time confront somebody. You know what you just reminded me of? That song with what's his name? You got to fight when you're a man. Sometimes he says
Kenny Rogers.
Kenny Rogers, the coward of the county.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great song.
It's a great song. And, he didn't fight or anything until they hurt his wife, and she was hurt. And so he went and beat the heck out of all those three guys.
For those listening, they should go listen to that song. Kenny Rogers, the coward of the county.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the father says, hey, you don't need to fight to be a man.
Correct.
But
sometimes you have to.
But sometimes you have to.
And it's an art, because you don't want to fight every fight, because then that's like that sheathing of the sword. You have the sword out all the time. You end up burning your bridges too, because if you do that, you don't have any allies that you can go to in time of need. Okay, but and
you end up beat up, you scarred. I mean, it affects you.
Yeah.
You may not come out of one of those fights.
Right. Exactly.
Even in a non-literal sense, if in a daily situation, when you're in business, you're constantly being attacked, constantly. And so if you have to engage with every single person that's attacking you, sometimes it's better, like in martial arts, you just get out of the way.
Yeah.
Because it may not be worth it, but sometimes it is worth it, and that's when you need to stand your ground. So I think like you said, it's an art, figuring out when do I engage and when do I let that one go by.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's got to do with, with whatever your goals are and so forth. There's a lot of stuff that I let go nowadays. They don't even bother me. And, I find myself thinking 30 years ago, I would have engaged in this and put up a fight. Today, I let a lot of things go by. However,
are people going to see you as weak?
Well, they'll find out if we do get involved in a confrontation,
whether you're weak or not.
Whether we're weak or not. It's just that as you get older, your ideas change. I'm here to tell you that what was important for me 30 years ago, 40 years ago, is no longer as important today. I view life completely different. And I think it has to do because of getting older. I haven't been sitting in my couch or on my chair. I've been extremely active in many areas, because you're only living once. So I always had the idea, why am I going to sit in a couch and watch a movie? You know, nothing wrong against it, but you know,
What specifically has changed? What did you think was important in your 30s that now today you don't?
I I can think of money. Money is important, and I find that it's important today. But I think money is more a tool that allows you to have freedom and give freedom to the people around you, not necessarily just your family and friends, but when you have money, you can do good things for people, right? But years ago, I thought that the person that had money was extremely powerful and, you know, had a lot of things going, and not necessarily so. Today, I see a lot of people that have a lot of money, and they're the most miserable people on earth.
So it doesn't bring happiness,
No,
is what you're saying.
no, you know,
You got to be happy before the money.
yeah, happiness is a state. I think they say happiness is a state of mind. The money doesn't make you happy. You can fly all over the place, and at some point it's gonna get old. You know, I see people that are wealthy, but they're fighting their families. They're constantly on a treadmill of life. You know, you're running to make a buck. I just, it depends what your goals are. You know,
Yeah.
I think that family is very important to me.
Yeah, what are your priorities?
Yeah, what are your priorities?
Some people it's travel.
Some people is travel, and so forth, and
Mm-hmm.
some people, their priorities are to make a ton of money. When is enough money enough? And don't get me wrong, I'm a businessman and I'm always looking for the next good deal, and
And to make money. I mean, you just
And to make
started a
money.
new company, a new project because you're on the go. You want to, I mean, a business has, I like Peterson's approach because he says, look, I created this academy or whatever the case, but it's not a nonprofit. It has to make money because when you are solving for a profit, you are most efficient. So I like that. Your new company has to solve for profit. Our company has to solve for profit. The one thing that we're not doing that with is this podcast. We're not solving for profit.
Well, this is a passion kind of thing.
That we're enjoying.
But I believe that we're going to do extremely well in the long run with our podcast. I think that one of our videos is going to go viral one day, and I have that dream, and we'll have a ton of followers, and I think we'll have a spike. And the most important thing for this podcast is that doing what we're doing and the relationship that we have and the reviewing of all these books, at least for my sake, it has transformed me. It really has. I wouldn't change it. It's become a form of habit to record every Monday
Mm-hmm.
and to review and to learn. I mean, there's so much knowledge to be acquired out there that if you're in the search for information and knowledge, you're never gonna be bored. You're always gonna be.
I mean, this book alone can branch you out into 100 different books because Greene is referencing the book of the
30
five
other
rings.
books,
Yeah.
40 other books
Yeah.
that he's actually read.
Right.
Yeah.
He's compiled that
Oh
information.
my God, unbelievable.
Well, it definitely helps to, they say like the best form of learning is teaching. So like by sitting down, and it makes us fortify the idea. And like if we have an idea from something we read in this strategy, we're putting it out and testing it. Because there are some things that I don't agree with completely that you say, or some things that you
even
say.
today, something happened today before the recording,
Mm-hmm.
and I picked up the phone to call immediately, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you said maybe you want to take another 20 minutes and think about it. And when you said that, I said, okay. I put the phone down. And I am sure that the call I made was different than the call I would have made, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that's, the 48 laws of power, one of the strategies,
Yeah.
wait it out.
Yeah.
Wait it out. Let it sink in.
Think it out a few different ways. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a very stoic type of action, because they tell you, don't react in the moment. Don't send that email right away, Let it sink in, digest it a little bit, and then when you're more calm. I was reading a book the other day. It says wait 24 hours.
Yeah. Yeah, in some instances. Before we wrap it up,
Okay.
thank you to everybody that's been following, liking, commenting. We really appreciate the feedback, and we're growing the channel. We're at 1,800 subscribers, 837 subscribers.
We want to get to 2,000.
We want to get to 2,000 and keep growing it and enjoying. So I thank you everybody who's on this journey along the way. I want to just ask you one more question. Greene quotes Machiavelli at the end of the chapter saying, "It's more useful to be feared than loved." What's your take on that?
I agree. It's like, what's the movie that we love so much? The one with
A Bronx Tale.
A Bronx Tale. You want to be both, Like he says, what's his name? The actor?
Chas
Palminteri. He says, if you could be both, but if you can't, it's better to be feared than to love. The power of fear lasts longer and is more powerful. Well, people would challenge us on that.
What do the viewers think?
Machiavelli, let us know.
Feared or loved?
Machiavelli, I'm with Machiavelli.
A few clear violent demonstrations will show people you are a danger and not to mess with you. That's a quote from the book. Another quote: in moments of danger, being seen as so nice will work against you.
Absolutely.
I'm guilty of that. I think sometimes people have thought I'm too nice and I won't do anything about it, and in some instances they were right.
People know that I'm extremely courteous, but there are some things that they can't mess with me, and I think that's out. But I'm also labeled as being, he's a nice guy, this and that. So you have to be careful.
Yeah.
It's an art. It's like catching a...
Unsheath that sword.
Yeah. Fishing a shark. You have to let him run first and think he's okay, and then you reel him in, and every time you reel him in a little bit more, but you have to let him go. You can't fight him directly. It's some
of these fish, apparently the halibut and some of these other fish,
swordfish too,
very difficult to catch. Yeah. We'll wrap it up. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.